Hello, students. I hope you are well and good at your homes. So, we are going to start the practice zones of the chapter number 14 that we have recently done, the force of friction. So, we will start with the first question of practice zone 1, that is, list the factors on which friction depends. Students, if you have done the chapter carefully, you might be knowing that the friction होती है, it depends upon the two things. One is upon the nature of the surface in contact, जो surface contact में आता है while rubbing two bodies, that उसके ऊपर depend करती है. If that surface is smooth, then the friction will be less, and if the surface is rough, then friction will be more, right? Next is the weight of the object. We know that it is easier to move a one book on the table, whereas it is not easier to move this pile of books. अगर हम 10-12 बुक्स एक दूसरे के ऊपर रख दें and then we try to move them from one place to another, it would be difficult. So this is what is the weight of the object also matters. Next is give two practical examples from your daily life in which friction plays significant role. So examples are like we walk from one place to another, we do not slip over the one place. That is because of the friction between the foot and the ground, right? That is why we are able to walk. Even when we apply the brakes of the car stops. So there also is the friction between the tires and the road, right? So even when we rub out our hands, they produce the heat. This we have already discussed, that when we rub two hands against each other, there is something heat is produced between the two hands, so which is helpful in the winters. So this is the role that is played by friction in our daily life. Next comes, what would happen if there were no friction between the two surfaces in contact. तो क्या होगा, the things when once they are put in motion, they will keep on moving in the one direction until and unless उनके ऊपर कोई external force नहीं लगती, तो तब तक bodies will be in motion and the bodies will slip from one place to another. Next is, suppose you have to draw a rectangular box from one place to another. It is easier to drag it along its longer side than to its shorter side. ऐसा हो सकता है, मीन्स अगर आपके पास एक रेक्टेंगल का बॉक्स है, अगर हम उसको ब्रेड्थ वाली साइड से, लेट अस टेक एन एग्जांपल, let us take this is a rectangular box, right? तो अगर हम इस बॉक्स को इस साइड से जो है रब करें, दैट इज़ अ लेस एरिया वाला पार्ट, उस साइड से अगर हम ड्रैग करें तो फ्रिक्शन कितनी लगेगी, एंड अगर हम इस साइड से ड्रैग करें देन व्हाट विल बी द फ्रिक्शन. वी नो दैट द फ्रिक्शन है डू नॉट डिपेंड्स अपॉन द एरिया ऑफ कॉन्टैक्ट, राइट? इट डिपेंड्स अपॉन द नेचर ऑफ द, जो नेचर ऑफ द एरिया ऑफ कॉन्टैक्ट है, मीन्स वो एरिया जो कॉन्टैक्ट में आ रहा है उसका नेचर कैसा है, वो रफ है, स्मूथ है, उस चीज़ पे डिपेंड करता है. तो देयर विल बी we will say that there will be no difference. You can drag it along the longer side also or the shorter side. It do not depends upon the area of contact. जो हमें पता है, friction depends upon the nature of the surface of contact and weight of the object. So next is practice zone 2. What do you mean by static friction? We know that the friction which opposes or which prevents the motion, that is said to be static friction. And next question is, state in your own words why sliding friction is smaller than the static friction. Sliding friction क्यों कम होती है than the static friction? We know that in the static friction द सर्फेसिस इन दो सर्फेस इन कॉन्टैक्ट में होते हैं, तो उनमें जो रेगुलरिटीज़ होती हैं दे इंटरलॉक बिटवीन ईच अदर, एंड इन स्टैटिक फ्रिक्शन बॉडी मूव भी नहीं कर पाती. वेर एज इन स्लाइडिंग फ्रिक्शन में बॉडी मोशन में होती है, जिसकी वजह से द टू सर्फेसिस इन कॉन्टैक्ट डू नॉट गेट मच टाइम टू इंटरलॉक देयर इरेगुलरिटीज़, जिसकी वजह से दे रब पास्ट ईच अदर. एंड this is what we say that in slide, and when the body slides, it offers जो है less जो friction है उसके ऊपर लगती है. Next is give two examples from your daily life. What is the static friction? This we have discussed, and sliding friction you also know. तो स्टैटिक फ्रिक्शन कहाँ पे होती है? व्हेन द बॉडी इज नॉट मूविंग, लाइक इफ यू आर ट्राइंग टू पुश अ heavy loaded trolley and it is not moving, that is because of the static friction, right? Next comes, you can give any other example also, like a heavy box is being pushed by your side and it is not moving, that is also due to the static friction. Next comes examples of sliding frictions. Sliding friction may you can take example of the boxes being loaded into the trolley with the help of inclined plane. Inclined plane पे क्या होता है, उनको slide करके boxes को चढ़ाया जाता है, right? Next is water coming down the वाटर स्लाइड, जो वाटर पे बच्चे खेलते हैं तो वाटर स्लाइड में इन द वाटर पार्क्स स्पेशली, उस केस में दे स्लाइड ओवर द वाटर. So this could be also the one of the example. Next comes, why are the rollers provided with the heavy suitcases? जो रोलर्स होते हैं उनके हैवी जो सूटकेस जो होते हैं उनके नीचे रोलर्स क्यों लगे होते हैं? बिकॉज it is very difficult to drag the suitcases, right? Because उस केस में there will be the sliding friction which will be in action, but if we use the rollers, so there will be the rolling friction. So we know that rolling friction is less than the sliding friction, so this is why there are the rollers which are present under the heavy suitcases. Next comes to, men push a heavy box and they failed. Finally, wheels were fitted to the box and the single person pushed it. What is the reason? This is same as like we have discussed in the previous question कि उस केस में when they are pushing the heavy box, तो there is a sliding friction which is in action. After that they use the wheels हैं वो use करते हैं under the box and they can easily move it from one place to another, because in that case rolling friction comes into action. Next is practice zone 3. Mention any 3 effects of friction. The friction can do, it can oppose the relative motion. The body's motion जो है हमारा उसकी opposite direction में लगती है हमेशा. Like you are moving on the ground, तो आपकी opposite direction में there is always a frictional force that is exerting. And also friction produces heat. We have done when we rub our 2 hands against each other, they produce heat. Next is it produces wear and tear, जिससे मशीन के जो पार्ट्स हैं वो रब हो जाते हैं, वो पुराने हो जाते हैं and after rubbing, and they lose their capacity to do work in the machines. Next comes, state in your own words why friction sometimes it is friendly and sometimes unfriendly. Friction के we have to write down the advantages and the disadvantages. This we have done a lot of time, that the friction had help us to walk, it help us to move from one place to another, that is. And also अगर कोई चीज़ एक जगह पे है, that is due to the static friction which is in action. So this is also, even while racing cars use the treated tires. वो क्यों use करती हैं? Because they have to make a sharp cuts, and to avoid the slipping there are the tires which are having the treated ones जिस पे grooves होते हैं and which provide better grip with the ground. And even the football players, hockey players होते हैं, they also use the spikes so that they can make a better grip with the ground. A few of the disadvantages, that it produces wear and tear, machine के parts खराब हो जाते हैं after some time, energy waste ज़्यादा होती है, and friction wears out the material. This we have done right now. And also जैसे कि machine के parts रब होते रहते हैं, जिसकी वजह से heat is produced and they get melted and the machine stops working in some cases. Next is give 2 reasons where the friction is used to produce fire. फायर प्रोड्यूस करने में, लाइक इन द केस ऑफ मैच स्टिक, जब मैच स्टिक को बर्न किया जाता है बाय रबिंग इट अगेंस्ट द मैच बॉक्स. So this is, you can write, even you can write down producing a spark when the 2 even stones, igneous जो stones होते हैं rocks, when they are rubbed against each other, यहाँ पे due to the friction there is a production of fire. Where it is helpful, where it is used to hold the 2 or more objects. जैसे कि we have discussed in that in कबड्डी गेम, जो कबड्डी players होते हैं they use some powder or the sand in between their hands, जिसकी वजह से they get better grip and they increase the friction of their hands to catch the other players. And also keeping object on the table, हम उसको hold करके ही रखते हैं, so this is also you can write from your own side.